What about a car insurance? What about a house and mortgage? What about food?
In fact, they made those changes so that they could pay us less than ever. Our wages have gone down while their budgets, revenues, and profits have all gone up.
We need somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger coming upstairs with us.
I know what it looks like. Hundreds of mostly white people marching with picket signs. What's going on here? Has the United States invaded another oil-rich country under the pretenses of democracy? Did a dog die unjustly? Did a homeowners association fee jump by $10? No. Something slightly worse than all of that combined is happening here. What you are looking at is the first joint strike and labor stoppage for actors and writers since the 1960s. A time in this country, I'll remind you, when the right to protest was leveraged by African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement. Also a time in this country when the right to beat protesters was discovered by white Americans. Since the great pandemic of 2020, the growing consensus in this country, according to my good buddy Bobby, who runs a sweatshop, is that Americans don't want to work anymore, and that they'll do anything to avoid it.
You know, the problem with people today is nobody wants to work. All they want to do is sit at home.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. There's huge collateral damage in the industry.
The representation is extremely bad, and striking on the street right now is doing absolutely nothing. Nobody in the country cares about it. This country is doing really bad, so the last thing they want to care about is actors.
Hollywood studios remain in the dark as the strike from the Writers Guild of America reached its 100th day.
Because at some point, the jig is up. You cannot keep being dwindled and marginalized and disrespected and dishonored.
I know. Well, with the writers and actors on strike right here in Hollywood, the only entertainment being produced at the moment are terrible TikToks and my afternoon stories. Thank God for that. So in the meantime, I've decided to get to the bottom of why the most profitable film and entertainment industry in the world is no longer functioning. We're going on a journey to understand how and why work stoppages occur in this country and who's behind them. Cameraman, I need you to stand up straight. I am not paying you pennies on the dollar to slack off. Now, we might be in Hollywood, Bubba, but there ain't no striking in the war report. Unless I'm in the mood to kick some ass. What is a strike anyway? And why are they allowed to happen? How'd they come to be? According to Ask Jeeves, the first recorded labor strike occurred in New York in 1768 when tailors refused to work in protest of wage reductions. Now, I learned in school that when cavemen were roaming around the country in the 1700s, they didn't even wear clothes. So how did tailors even have jobs? Pardon the pun here, but that sounds a little fabricated. Anyway, about 30 years later, the very first union in the United States emerged. The Federal Society of Journeymen Gordwainers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania published price requirements for their work and demanded shorter workdays, thereby setting a template for the modern-day union. The most well-known labor and trade union today is the American Federation of Labor, founded in 1886, a union renowned for its successes in negotiating wage increases for members and safety improvements for all workers. But they haven't been able to prevent all tragedies. In 1911, a fire at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company killed 150 workers, most of them women, because the safety exits in the loft building in New York City's Lower East Side had been locked in an effort to prevent theft. This fire eventually led to significant industrial safety reforms, including the Fair Labor Standards Act and the 40-hour work week, proving that the real way to move legislation in this country is not by writing your congressman, but by setting catastrophic fires and disrupting the chain of commerce. In 1970, Congress passed the Occupational Safety and Health Act, or OSHA. Its main goal is to ensure that employers provide employees with a workplace free from known hazards, like toxins, loose electrical wires, and Jehovah's Witnesses. Unions helped get this legislation passed, as well as workers' compensation laws in many states, which hold employers accountable for workplace safety. Today, more than 60 unions throughout the country represent workers in all industries, including the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, and the Writers Guild of America. That brings us to today. It's time to understand what's going on in Hollywood today. Why are a bunch of privileged, overpaid stars taking their ball and going home? After throwing a few strikes of my own, I sat down with a very special guest directly impacted by the Hollywood strike. Fresh off of a press tour for his new Bratz doll movie.
It's Barbie, asshole.
Excuse me. Apparently the movie was Barbie. At his age? Okay. Anyway, Ryan Reynolds had a lot to say.
Do you mind backing up a bit? This is kind of close.
Son, you're not going to tell me how to run my show, okay? I didn't tell you not to take the movie Green Lantern, and if I did, you wouldn't have listened to me.
That's Gosling. Ryan Gosling. It's not Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling. And I'm a stand-in, occasional stunt double.
Son, I know exactly who you are, okay? My production team and I have done our research. I've heard about your movies. Venom, not that great. The Notebook, even worse. And this Bratz movie is a movie
Barbie.
Can you clearly articulate for the millions of Americans who do work why your industry is now advocating for mass homelessness?
No one's trying to be homeless, dude. We're trying to prevent the exact opposite. No, actors are on strike because we need an increased pay and restructured residuals. Now, over time, those have diminished significantly with the rise of streaming services.
Well, to be fair, the acting's gotten worse. So I'm having a hard time understanding why you need a bigger pay raise. And the residual thing, I'm not understanding, because that sounded like theft to me. So do you want to explain that one?
Residuals are a financial compensation that's paid out to actors whenever a TV show or a commercial that they appeared in are replayed.
So then what are the writers whining about? Okay, because we don't ever see them.
Well, writers want residuals for the same reason we do. And writers want the residuals to reflect foreign memberships and larger viewerships. And they also want a new pension and health compensation. You know, like most normal jobs.
Oh, you want a normal job? Now's your opportunity to go get one of those.
So you'll be fine with no entertainment, no television, no film.
Brother, I do not need any of that, okay? The last film that I saw in theaters was Kazam. The only thing that I need are my soap operas and the Bible. Yes, the Bible. Have you ever read it? Tons of entertainment in that book. Anything you could ask for. Lust, murder, betrayal, revenge, incest, if you're into that.
I'm not.
Okay, well, when's this thing gonna end? I mean, when are y'all gonna pull up your rather tight britches and get back to work?
Well, we're hoping for a resolution soon, but the exes have made it clear that they're willing to hold it out until we, the actors and the writers, start starving. So, I don't know.
Well, they sound like reasonable folks to me. Look, we all know that the best negotiation happens when one side has no bargaining power. I like it. And I tell you what, I'm not really a big fan of your work, but since you do have these unreasonable asks of the living wage, I do think that this thing's gonna be prolonged, okay? And here at the War Report, we could use an extra hand on the production side of things. What do you say? Listen, I pay a competitive wage by Great Depression standards.
I continued my productive conversation with Mr. Gosling Reynolds, which eventually led to his employment as a production hand here at the War Report. Even in the midst of a manufactured labor crisis, I'm still putting people to work here, and I do it for cheap.
Folks, Hollywood bickering and fighting over wages may seem like a bad thing, but I beg to differ. In fact, I propose a solution. We have a prime opportunity to ditch our reliance on digital entertainment, except for this show, and relive out our glory days. It's time for this country to abandon the 80-year project called television altogether. Let me remind you that prior to the 1940s and the implementation of television into the homes, this country had peaked. Men used to go outside and fix cars, fight bears, start wars, and die prematurely, but nobly. Women used to do the dishes, laundry, basically whatever they were told to do, and as a reward, they got to do things like sit passenger side at the drive-thru theater and have babies. But when the television entered American households, what happened? Bible sales began to plummet. Literacy rates fell, feminism creeped into the home, and men started gossiping on podcasts. This has resulted in a landscape that has allowed Hollywood to prosper. After nearly a century of peddling us bad propaganda, masquerading as television like Charmed and The Magic School Bus, and bad movies like Crash and Black Swan, the Hollywood bubble has finally burst. The fastest way to end this strike is to return to a life where a strike in Hollywood doesn't matter. And besides, we need to be sharper and more intelligent than ever before. Because as you may have heard, other intelligent life forms certainly live among us. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen.